Oh, all right. How you doing, Claudia?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to get this conversation started. Um,
Me too.
yeah. So everybody's hearing each other. Things are flowing. Um, I want to start off this conversation and welcome everybody for listening. Thank you for being here and listening. Claudia and I are again in conversation, and I'm really excited to start. Actually, this is going to be part of a series of videos specifically on energetic communication. So, approaching communication in more of an energetic perspective and also looking at different perspectives of that. So, just to let you know, this will be the first video recording conversation about energetic communication, specifically on the topic of quieting the intuition. So intuition being part of, the more abstract way of communicating with yourself. And we're going to really talk about what it means to what quieting of that intuition is. So before we get into it, I want to introduce myself. I'm Raynelle. I have a nature-based coaching and consulting firm called Rino Consulting Solutions. I call my business a nature-based company because I really center my work around nature and connecting to nature as that guiding tool and knowledge for how I work with people and how I engage with the process. I'm in conversation today with Claudia, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Yes, thanks so much for being in conversation with me again. I'm really excited about our 4-part series on energetic communication. And again, my name's Claudia, and I am an energy worker, and I work from the frame of Mesoamerican indigenous tradition. And yeah, so I also use both titles, holistic life coach and curandera. And I work from a frame of we learn in community, and we all have a deep inner wisdom inside of us. And we all have ability to access that. So really the way that I work with my folks is working with the sacred elements and then with the chakras and with the universal energy to uncover our truest, most authentic essence and wisdom.
Amazing. Cool. So yes, we're really both in the way that we work is a lot around energy. And so I think it's really key to begin this series with some of the more, obvious ways to work with people is energetically working. And then communication is just such a huge umbrella topic of like everything, right? So I think it's a great way to just start and going into the topic of quieting in the intuition. We really hope that we could share our perspective, how we work with the quieting of the intuition and what that means actually, and hopefully bring some lived experience and learnings from today. And at the end of the call or at the end of the talk, we'll let you know what topic we're going to get into next week. And as we go through this series, it's going to get deeper and deeper. So make sure you pay attention at the end for what is to come next after this topic. So why don't we get started on the topic of quieting the intuition. When you brought it up to me too, as we were talking about what should we cover, that really landed for me.
Yeah.
Because intuition is such a big part of the way that I connect to my clients and when I'm outside to nature. So, you know, from just you and your perspective, Claudia, what does it actually mean to you, and why is it really important for people to think about the quieting of the intuition?
Yeah, thanks. So when I think about connecting and communicating, so when I think about energetic communication, the first thing that comes up for me really is connection to self. I felt like for a long time, I thought that I was very connected um, to what I want, but I was really listening to a lot of the different stories and messages that my family, that the environment was telling me, that my job was telling me. And it really drowned out what I really wanted, how I wanted to express myself. And I'm not talking about like just verbally, I'm talking about how I walk in the world. So when I think about communication, I'm thinking about how am I communicating with myself, with my energetic body, with my emotional body, with my physical body, as just like a starting point to cultivating that inner wisdom that I was talking about earlier.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that you listen to yourself in that, because as a practitioner, that's one thing I've always believed in this place that I've arrived to in really helping others, is like this idea that if I haven't listened to myself first, how can I have the capacity to listen to someone else who is in need of something from me? Where is my toolkit being cultivated for someone else? That's just that idea too, I think, is really important when it comes to being a practitioner, and offering ourselves in that way. And for me, it's really been the piece that I didn't realize I had, was like a really strong intuition with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me, intuition is that gut feeling. It's sometimes the feeling you don't know what the feeling is, but it's like that very basic fight or flight, right? Am I going to fight in this situation, or do I need to flee? So intuition can go to that basic piece of like just knowing whether you need to do this or that. And for me, when you put quieting of the intuition, it brings up so much for me, because it has so much weight in the fact that, like, the way that I've come to my work is very land-based, right? It's very like place-based, people-based. And so when we look at history and how people have migrated throughout history and even now, one of the aspects of being able to forcibly migrate people, to forcibly put people in places they unwillingly want to do, one of the tactics I've recognized was like quieting of the intuition, like not allowing people to think for themselves, to hear themselves in the wisdom that they have, because how else can you control? Right? So that weight came like right when you said the terms. I was like, oh yes, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
So
I hear it a lot, but I was just going to add was, um, I, I think since starting to work with clients and even just in friends, people will share with me, like, I had that moment of, I knew this wasn't the right person for me. I knew this wasn't the right person for me to date, but I just thought, okay, either they brush it off or somebody told them, like, oh, you're being crazy or something like that. And so they wrote it off, and later they'll be validated in whatever it was they were feeling was correct. So, yeah, just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like, well, what takes us to that place where we don't want to listen to that intuition?
Right.
Why does that happen?
Yeah. Which is one of the reasons why we were like, let's talk about this. We need to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to the fact that like we learn ourselves and then we help others.
Yeah.
You know, from your experience, like when has that shown up for you, and how did you work through it?
Yeah. I would say like within the last 10 years, but really like, I'm not sure if I shared this in our last talk, but I was very sick at one point, and my doctors, I mean, you know, my doctors just kept telling me whatever frame that it was that they were working from, you got to take this medicine, you got to take this medication, you know, the kind of age old tale of like, you got to do this, you can't exercise, you got to really blah, blah, blah. But in my intuition, I was telling him, you know, doctor, I really think that I think that there's a mind-body connection here, and I would like to talk to somebody about it. I need to see a nutritionist. I want to get my like diet right. I want to exercise. So I want to get my blood flowing. It makes my muscles feel better. And he was just kind of like, you know, that's all good and fine, but I'm not going to make those referrals for you. I'm not going to connect you with anybody. But I ended up having to do those things on my own anyway. And that's what ended up getting me to a healthier place. It was a long road, but it was me seeking out my own integrated wellness. So that really like resonated with me. And then I started to realize that there were other people in similar situations that were having a similar experience. Like they were being told that their intuition wasn't, oh, what you think about your own body is not correct.
Right.
That's kind of where it all started with me.
Well, what did you do to cultivate more of that, like listening?
I think in the beginning it really felt scary because it felt like I was really having to break away from the experts, the people who were telling me like, you know, we know better than you. It really took like really talking to people who were supporting me and making my own decisions. When I said, I do this and I feel better because of it, they said, well, you should do more of that. And then, so talking to people who supported me in trusting myself and trying things out for myself, like doing my own practice, like having my own readings that I was doing. I'm talking about like actual physical literature, but then energetically, it's a practice of like risk taking with myself in that way, you know, like that I can cultivate the trust within myself because I can show myself that I was actually on the right path all along.
Right. And I think that like talking about how scary it is so real.
It is scary.
Because you're kind of just like, I don't know. I mean, for me, I feel like there's also the conditioning that the way to solve problems through other people and the experts, which, you know, not to invalidate any of the licensed or expert or many years of study type of academic also, or scholars in this. I think those are all still important. And when it comes down to it, taking that information and then intuiting like what it actually means is also been kind of like what I see. There's power in that, but that's also not normalized to kind of like jump out of the intellectual information from other people. And then, I don't know, I guess it's what I'm saying is like, there's also a component of like trusting yourself that's been
Yeah.
lost in that process of like the quieting of the intuition. We also lose that process, is like losing trust and confidence in ourselves too. That's included.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like looking at you now today, it's like you're clearly more on your path of, feeling a lot more of who you are and what your body needs and the happiness. So I guess it's like awakening the intuition is what comes after. Yeah, so I think like for me too, quieting of it, it just speaks so much about realizing what healing I need to do. And, the fact that you also said that you needed to surround yourself with people who actually supported you in that is part of the process of allowing the awakening to happen. And I think that's something that, I've sort of had to play with in my experience, is like getting to a point where I'm like, no, I'm going to trust my intuition on this one. I'm going to move forward with the intuition on this one. And it just bringing up a lot of reality in, okay, so if I start to talk more from like my true self, like sometimes people don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes what you intuitively feel could also be scary for the other person.
Yeah.
So I think from my experience, I have seen the consequences of like forced quieting. I guess I have to say it in just like noticing how that impacts people's ability to think for themselves, to solve their own problems. When I was working with young people, part of the struggle there was, I had the ability to I had the autonomy to kind of approach the teaching in a different way because I was a non-formal, unaccredited instructor, and I was just coming in there with my own style. But I noticed that was one of the consequences of the education system is to not be able to think for yourself, is to get the information regurgitated and repeated out. So that was kind of like the first real life experience that I've had, really, is being able to teach young people and have them actually get the material, like feel and live what I've been teaching. So even with my work now today as a coach, I just kind of notice the quieting of the intuition when somebody is asking me to give them the answer. That's not my job as a coach, is not to give the answer. I can consult on a project and I could give advice and I could make suggestions. Even then, there's only certain parts where I'm offering the thing, telling or teaching. But as a coach, like I'm here guiding, and So I really want to guide you into tapping into your own intuition, because I'm not you. Only you know what's best for you. And I always believe that we always have the answers. We just have to awaken that intuition as a first step, if needed.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I see along the same lines too is I think it's hard sometimes to realize or like recognize that we're acting from a place of appeasing another. Like I feel like that's difficult for us, especially for those of us who are empaths. We're deep feelers, so we pick up somebody else's what do they want? What do they want from me? And so it's easy to really be like, I'm going to put my own thing aside because I know that I'm making you uncomfortable, like you were kind of referring to earlier. And sorry. And I think one of the first things is realizing that, oh, I'm actually presenting in a different way. Like the way that I'm presenting is different than the actual way that I'm feeling inside. Just noticing that there's a discrepancy, like without judgment, right? Like,
right.
Oh, what I really wanted was this. And then I realized that something else was actually happening because of whatever was going on in the situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's being able, I don't know. I what I want to say is, it gets easier to, I guess from my experience, it gets easier to tap into your own intuition the more you know who you are.
Yeah.
Because the more you know who you are and who you identify it as, and like what you want or don't want in the world, the more you could recognize that gut feeling to be like, nope, that's not the right relationship. That's not the right situation for me. And so it's like, it's work though. It's a lot of work to get to that space. And it's always constant learning about, okay, so who am I? Because we're also constantly changing, like we're evolving, right? Like I grow, I'm a different person. So now, like, what's my intuition saying about that? So, but I feel like, knowing who you are also is, you're able to manage like what decisions are in front of you, who you are interfacing with, and what situation you have. But without that intuition, you kind of like, I don't know, there's more of that freedom to choose what might not be the best, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like from what you're saying too, if we're disconnected to ourselves or if we're disconnected from our intuition, I mean, we're really kind of not fully 100% aware of how we're engaging ourselves and others. We're just kind of like, there's a opening to kind of walk through life and engage with ourselves and others. And it's kind of like a limited amount of feeling,
Right.
And then when we start to tap into our intuition more, and we start to realize that there's impact when there's an exchange, we feel things differently.
When we're more aware.
When we're more aware, yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So then it's like, that's the scary point too, because you're just like, oh, I'm going to do something different than I did before.
Yeah, exactly. That's the risk-taking part of it.
Cool. Well, I think this is such good conversation just about like intuition and what that actually is. It's, it's that inner voice, right? And there have been things in our immediate environments in our like global environment, maybe even just like social things, greater than just our immediate environment, that quiet the intuition. And I feel like awakening the intuition in our conversation is even just like the most simplest thing. To awaken it is to just listen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just pause and listen and like be more aware of that feeling and feel more. So I don't want to get deep into it now, but I think that's also a good thing to maybe touch on next time too, is, you know, when we're interacting, when we're in relationship, what does this energetic communication mean, you know, and getting deeper into like the intuitive part of being in relationship with others.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could get deeper into that next time. And also just like, you know, touching on, well, sometimes I actually get folks that don't know how to feel their bodies and how to work with that. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say about today's topic, and then what folks might anticipate next time.
Yeah, so along the lines with what you're saying, creating space for the listening feels important. And whether that be, I feel like meditation has kind of become very mainstream. Mm-hmm. But I mean, really, it could be something as simple as putting your phone down or shutting the TV off, or just having like just a few minutes of silence so you can just sit with yourself. I feel like we don't really do that in our culture. And so really just starting to create little spaces. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just 1 or 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to be able to sit with our own experience, mm-hmm. Emotional, physical, or what have you. I think people really get surprised at how much comes up when they sit in stillness like that. So that feels important to say. Oh, and as far as for, did you say for the next time?
Yeah, for next video, we're gonna get deeper into if there's anything you wanted to tease people about. About.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think, yeah, we'll be moving from talking about cultivating that within ourselves, and how can we then bring that into our relationships with others. So
I'm excited for that one, because oh gosh, relationships.
We all just want to be, well, maybe that's kind of a blanket statement, but like, who doesn't want more real connection with other folks, right? So
right.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, you know, I know you do amazing work. You're working with clients now. How do folks get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I work out of Community Well in the Excelsior District in San Francisco. And you can find me on Community Well's website. So it's communitywellsf.com, I believe. And I also am on Facebook, and my handle is at Claudia Holistic Coach. I'm sorry, at Claudia Holistic Life Coach. And I'm also on Instagram under the handle La Clandestina. It's a little bit complicated, which I'm looking to change, but it's LA __ clandestina _. Like clandestine, but in Spanish. So that's how you can find me. And then there's a link to book with me for energy sessions. So.
Oh, cool. Cool. All right, so I'm Raynelle. My website is Rino, that's Rino, consultingsolutions.com. My handlebar on Instagram is Hike It Out Coaching. You can find a lot more of my nature experiences and whatnot on my Instagram feed. I love to share my hikers. I do healing hikes for groups. A lot of my private clients do private outdoor sessions where we're connecting to their inner landscape with the outer landscape and processing that way. So follow me on Instagram, again, Hike It Out Coaching. My next healing hike is February 10th. That's a Sunday, and we'll be in Fremont. So check it out. A lot of those tickets for healing hikes are on Eventbrite. Just look up Reset and Reflection Hikes. It's your time to just reset. Thank you for listening. We will be coming at you again, even deeper with a different topic around energetic communication. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Like or comment wherever this is posted. Please share it out and let folks know. And stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Raynelle.
Thank you.